The safety of flying is top of mind these days for obvious reasons. Ed Pierson, a former senior manager at a Boeing 737 MAX factory, won't stop talking. And that's because the ex-Boeing employee turned whistleblower has spent the last 7 years calling out what he thinks were serious flaws in the aerospace giant's production processes. He's been trying to draw the attention of Congress and federal agencies, and he's even gone before Congress to testify about Boeing's slew of deadly failures and near disasters.
Pierson, one-man mission for Boeing descent, counsels families of crash victims and other whistleblowers. Joining us now to elaborate is Ed Pierson, the executive director of the Foundation for Aviation Safety and the host of Warning Bells podcast. Thanks for joining us, Ed.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's nice for you to be with us. So please give us the latest in your mission as a whistleblower and taking this message out to Congress and anybody who will hear it. What has changed and progressed positively in your campaign?
Well, I want to tell you right away that it's never really been just my campaign. There's a lot of people that are interested in aviation safety, and obviously a lot more seems to be more interested today. But it's a team of people, actually. And last week, we joined forces with accident victim family members, individuals that lost loved ones on one of the two Boeing MAX accidents, the one in Ethiopia, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302. And we met with members of Congress, congressional staffers, legislative staff. We had several meetings with them last week, and we talked to them, and everybody was interested in the same question: is it safe to fly? And our response is, first of all, you have to understand there's a human cost of this. These are real people. These aren't numbers, right? And quite honestly, we're tired of the platitudes of everything is fine, there's nothing wrong, and they quote all these statistics, but those statistics have never really prevented accidents or saved anybody. And what we're talking about is currently what's happening. You know, we really are not that interested in past statistics. We're just interested in making things safe. And so the positive news, I'd say, is that when we met with these staffers, they were very receptive to the recommendations that not only the victim family members had, but us from the Foundation for Aviation Safety. And our recommendation is, and I hope this makes sense, but it seems like these types of incidents and accidents come in waves, and there's a flurry of activity and a bunch of media interest and a bunch of congressional interest, and a bunch of promises are made and a bunch of promises are broken, and then it fades like the tide. You know, it just kind of recedes back, and people forget about it, go back to their normal day of business, and then you know, wait for the next one to come in, and we repeat the process. And it's complacency that what we see. You know, the reason we're so successful for all these years is because people worked hard for millions of people worked hard for decades to make it safer. So the positive news is we came in and we said, look, we need to do something different. The family members had a meeting with Secretary Duffy a couple weeks ago, and they expressed to him an interest in creating an interagency task force with representatives from the different government agencies, that this would be a team of people working 24/7 around the clock to identify issues, to analyze the issues, and to make recommendations that can actually occur. We think a focused effort like that will allow people to, these agencies, and it's not just Boeing, the manufacturer. I mean, we want Boeing to be successful. It's important to our country and our national security, but we also want safe planes. And we have to have safe planes into the future, and other countries are depending on us as well. So I think the positive news is there seems to be real interest in creating this interagency task force of experts. This is not for industry people to be on. This is for government, you know, Department of Transportation, FAA, NTSB, you know, DOD, the organizations that have you know, Department of Commerce, those organizations. And we think that there's some positive traction on that, and we think that's a good way to go. It's certainly better than just continuing to expect something, you know, to change when nothing changes. It's just the same old routine.
Sure. And I just want to explain for people who do not have your level of expertise in aerospace engineering what your case is as it pertains to Boeing, because obviously I've no expertise in that area. So let me just, correct me if I'm wrong, as I try to summarize this for people who don't, you know, are not in the minutiae of this world. There were two Boeing MAX crashes in late 2018 and early 2019. Tragically, there were more than 100 people killed in each one. And as I understand it, there is broad agreement that a sensor malfunctioned, and so the planes went downwards when they really shouldn't have. And the point of contention is, as I take it, why that sensor malfunctioned. And Boeing has said it's a bird strike, and one of your concerns, having worked at Boeing and having seen the production line, was there was a lot of pressure to put as many planes out as possible. That led to a kind of chaos or disorganization which lowered safety standards, and that may have contributed to electrical or wiring faults that were in fact the reason why the sensor went awry and those planes crashed. Is that, in summary, basically your case, your theory?
That's a pretty good summary. There's more to it. If I could elaborate maybe a bit. You're right that the NTSB and the government agencies, the FAA, and certainly Boeing, they concluded that this was a MCAS software failure, maneuvering characteristic augmentation system software that caused the plane to pitch down. And there's documentaries and tons of, thousands of news stories about this. My issue has always been what caused the angle of attack sensor to fail. And in the case of this particular plane that we're talking about, ET-302, U.S. authorities are saying that it was a bird that hit the sensor exactly at that spot at exactly at that time. But what they are doing is they're completely ignoring really irrefutable evidence that is coming out that shows that that plane and the Lion airplane both had electrical and electronic failures before they crashed, serious electrical issues. In fact, the second reason we met with the Congress last week was we wanted to tell them that the NTSB Chair Homedy received documents from us. We received documents, official Boeing and FAA documents, just over the summer, and we passed them immediately to the NTSB. And these documents clearly show, in the case of this plane, that it had electrical issues when it was being built. I worked in a factory, as you mentioned, while we were building these planes during this time frame. I had just retired just before the accident, and it was an absolute chaos mess. We had tons of out of sequence work. There was tons of reports of quality issues. And the accident investigators were never afforded the opportunity to go in and investigate manufacturing. And myself and others were screaming, saying, "This was really a place you need to go." It was a 2-month-old and a 4-month-old plane that crashed, and they didn't do that. They went instead and fixated on the MCAS software and the pilot training, which clearly played a huge role. But we wanted to know what else really caused these accidents. And so I've written several reports. These documents that we shared, those documents by international standards, ICAO stands for International Civil Aviation Organization, Annex 13 standards. These are the guidelines on how accident investigations are supposed to occur, clearly show that anything that is considered relevant information, and some of these documents are production records of the actual airplane as it was being built. It shows that they were having problems installing the electrical wiring interconnect system, or EWIS. It showed that they had parts issues, mislabeled parts, misinstalled parts. There was at the same week, if you can believe it, the same week that the Ethiopian plane was being built in Renton, Washington factory up north at the Everett site at the electrical center, they had a FAA investigation underway for whistleblowers who claimed that the site, which was building electrical components, had actually completely lost control of the quality of the parts, and they were working defective parts. And then there was probably the most damning report, which we passed, was when the plane was only a couple weeks old. It was coming in to land at 1,000 feet above the ground, and it had an uncommanded roll. The Ethiopians were concerned about this, and they asked Boeing, and we had these records. We shared these are the records I'm talking about. Went to Boeing and said, "Hey, we had this incident. Can you help us troubleshoot it?" And after going back and forth, eventually Boeing said, "Send us the flight data recorder information." And again, this is the plane that later crashed a couple months later. And they sent the data to them, and they came back, and Boeing said that they suspect that there's an intermittent electrical fault in the wiring. And these documents that I just described to you very briefly, none of those were shared with international accident investigators or criminal investigators. And this is just further evidence that those airplanes had definitely had manufacturing defects in them. And what we're seeing today, and that was again one of the things we were discussing with the congressional staff, is there's a long list of defects, of engineering and manufacturing defects that have come to light on this particular plane since the FAA conducted its 20-month, comprehensive recertification,
And
and
Ed,
it's right on our website.
we've only
So
got
I just
about a minute here, but I just wanted to ask you before we go out, and this is a sensitive question. I'm just asking because a lot of people in our audience, I think, would want this asked of you and to get your take on this, because whistleblower safety is no joke. It's a real thing across any high wire industry, agency, government. As you've been doing this campaign since 2018 or so, have you felt safe and secure in going through this process and working on this issue?
Look, that's a decision that individual whistleblowers make with their families, and my family stands behind me. They know that this is important to our country. It's important to the world, and so we're going to continue to communicate. We want Boeing to be successful. We want our government agencies to be successful. So our focus is on discussing what's currently happening out there and helping drive changes to improve safety. So that's really where our focus is.
Ed, just very finally, and we literally have about 1 minute left here, in relation to the flaws that you believe happened with Boeing, you obviously think that Boeing or the aircraft industry generally is a little too close to regulators and so forth. Do you have confidence, in short, that that is going to change?
No, not if we continue doing what we're doing and expecting different results. It's not going to change. It requires a completely different, first of all, it requires integrity and admitting that these problems exist. And you can't fix problems unless you don't admit that they exist. There's documents that I want to just tell you about. The NTSB is not sharing those documents with the parties to the investigation, which is, again, against international regulations. So we just want the proper investigation so we can get to the truth and really, move forward. At this point, we are encouraged by what we're hearing from Secretary Duffy and the congressional staffers. They were very encouraging. So we hope that they actually take these recommendations to heart.
Ed Pierson, it has been a real pleasure to have you on Rising. Thanks for giving us your time, and I hope we talk again.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
What's really going on with Elon Musk at the White House? Stay with us.